I'm still in studio with Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Senator Makueni, and Kipruto Arap Kirwa, Deputy Party Leader, ANC. We continue looking at the headlines. And it's this issue about the referendum. The question is, Bwana Kipruto Arap Kirwa, are those pushing for, do you have a feeling that those pushing for referendum are clear on what agenda? Because the senator here says we need to be clear on what you're talking about. What are the questions? Do you think even those pushing for a referendum are clear on what exactly they hope to achieve?
Well, let's start with the handshake. The handshake, in my understanding, was national healing and reforms before the next election. And for me, reforms are imperative in the sense that we've gone through a number of elections, and each election has been very divisive, violent, and it has cost us lives and property. And any Kenyan who wishes well this nation would not run away from reforms. Number two, the national healing is also another imperative, especially for people who come from where I come from. In 2007, we literally lost a number of people, both in Uasin and partly Trans Nzoia. I remember my parents-in-law, my brother-in-law and their family, 27 of them. I had to evacuate them from Uasin to Trans Nzoia. They stayed with me for almost a whole month because their home was not secure. Within 1 year, I lost both my mother-in-law and my father-in-law because of the trauma. These are people who have lived in Rift Valley from the 50s, and all of a sudden they are told it is not your home. That national healing, I expected after the issue, the debacle of Hague, the president and his deputy should have spent time, especially about the two communities, the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin. The kind of seemingly comradely relationship is artificial, in my opinion, because I come from Trans Nzoia, I'm a Kalenjin, and therefore I live among them. There is no love lost between the two communities. We are just pretending. The day the election will start, and this is the ticket. When you hear people telling Uhuru, you must tell us whether you are supporting Ruto or not. This is the beginning of that kind of momentum. And for me, national healing is an imperative. And if Ruto wants to be the president of Kenya, it needs Kenya that the communities are united.
And you feel a referendum will actually be a remedy to some of these issues? Because
it may not be referendum. As Mutula Jr. said, it is important that we know, we lay the framework, and within that framework we discuss what is urgent for us now, what can we do in 10 years, what can we do in 20 years. We don't have to do everything.
National healing and the referendum, those two things, can they go hand in hand? Between now and 2022, we have about 4 years or so. Do you think those two things
they are same as twins? Because you see, when you deal with the issue of referendum, what is the content? It is inclusivity. What is the content? It is making every Kenyan feel that if we elect Mutula Jr. as the president of Kenya, I don't feel I'm on the fringes of that government. I feel this is my government. That is the most important thing. So the two are same as twins. We have to do it, but we do it in a manner that we don't compromise the current situation. We don't compromise anybody. And the danger is to put names in any discussion. 2022 general election is not the last election. It's one of the series of elections we've had since independence, and we love infinitum. There is no way that we are going to say 2022 is a watershed. 2022 is just a process of another election.
Because the deputy president, who right now, according to surveys, is probably the front runner in the lead up to 2022 to actually succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta, he's actually voiced his opposition to any sort of referendum. They also feel that if at all he becomes president before we have this referendum, then we might as well forget about it. Is that the feeling? Should that be a concern?
First, allow me to say that the statement made by Mheshimiwa Kipruto Arap Kirwa it's sad, but it's also true. I happen to have, through the family, various investments in Rift Valley, and you know the jail. The jail is not there. The president, in one of his State of the Nation address, and I've said that one of the way to analyze the State of the Nation address is not, it's not like the president issues 2017, 2018, it should be progress.
Yes.
Because the president one time, I think in the 2014 or 15 one, apologized for what he perceived then as a president to have been atrocities visited upon Kenyans by successive regimes. But my comment was that the apology was not good enough. The apology should have been followed by what Mheshimiwa Kipruto Arap Kirwa is saying. We attempted the truth, justice and reconciliation.
Attempted.
It was an attempt.
Yes.
Because the final report ended up in the shelves of Parliament, never discussed. Nobody wants to revisit this issue. The only thing we wanted to revisit was the judiciary. But the point he's making is that the issues that bedeviled the Rift Valley area, 1992, 1997, and the successive elections, the election was just the catalyst and the vehicle for communities to fight.
Yeah.
But the underlying question is not the election itself. They had a grievance, but they found a vehicle. Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga says that the 2022 elections will be messy if you don't have reforms. I would coin the question differently. The problem is the injustices that he's talking about. That the things that cause chaos is not the elections, because we, the political parties, fight just to get certificates. It's got nothing to do with the general elections. So there are many things, but national healing, that discussion about or inclusivity, trust me, the question, or people say, like somebody has proposed that you have either a rotational president or this, is an attempt to make it look like, but more importantly, is it possible to elect Kipruto Arap Kirwa because the man is competent, and not because he comes from Trans Nzoia and he speaks by accident his mother tongue? That sort of question. It's the same thing I told you the other day about IEBC. Is it possible that we can put Kipruto Arap Kirwa, who shares mother tongue with the deputy president, without perceiving that he will be biased? You understand?
Yes. Yeah.
So this issue about that we must have, for example, a foreigner to run IEBC, those issues I don't think the president has addressed those issues.
But you see, the challenge is that we're still tying this proposals to change the constitution, or to make changes to the constitution, to 2022. Why the urge that we have to do it before 2022? Is there anxiety that probably if we cross, we have an election in 2022, then probably this whole discussion about reforms, national healing, will just disappear?
I get a sense that Prime Minister Raila and President Uhuru Kenyatta may be thinking of quitting active politics.
Yeah.
And therefore they feel they are placed in a better position to midwife the process, because they are not going to be like players.
They have no interest.
They have no direct interest. And therefore their interest is more of legacy. And of course, history as a way of coming back. The founding fathers of this nation were Uhuru's father and Jaramogi's father, Raila's father, to a large extent. And when they parted ways, we created the politics of polarization. And therefore, possibly God is using its divine providence to bring the two sons of the founding fathers and to heal this nation. And that's why I've always supported the handshake, but I've been saying, what is the content?
Yeah.
And number two, it is also important to know the history of this nation, and people don't change overnight. Deputy President William Ruto has been in the opposition all the time. The first time it was the ODM wave against the rest of us. The second time, he galvanized the church and other innocent players to oppose this particular constitution, where is the beneficiary being the first holder of the office of the deputy president, which is a departure from the vice president. Now he's doing it again to galvanize a certain community of people who strongly believe, and they have already named the referendum to be anti-devolution. They have already named the referendum as a dynasty versus the Atlas. They have already named the referendum as the expansion of the executive to give jobs to Adozi when young people don't have jobs. He has already gotten fodder for his campaign to galvanize that innocent and ignorant constituency. so that he can get enough followers for the 2022 election. So if there is anybody poisoning the program, are these same individuals who are saying Raila is destroying Jubilee. You see, what you think about during the day, you are likely to dream about. And I think Duale and Murkomen, they have nightmares. They see Raila in their dreams. And when they wake up, they have to
you know, unfortunately,
that's funny.
I have to say it out in the open that yes, Kimani Wamatangi, Senator Kiambu County, was to be part of this panel this morning. You can actually see there's no representation from Jubilee. I don't know if he developed jitters just looking at the headlines this morning, but it would have been nice to hear from the Jubilee side what exactly the feeling is like now that they're saying that Raila is breaking the party. But is this anxiety real that probably a few individuals are not really concerned about national healing? Because it should be a collective concern for everyone. That if at all we go beyond 2022, then anything that we're thinking about changing, we should just as well forget it.
No. I think Mheshimiwa Kipruto in his eloquence has stated this. And there's a famous phrase where you call a dog a bad name and then you hang it.
Yes.
So what the mandarins of reforms are doing are calling the dog a bad name so that they hang it, and they will use whatever it is. If Raila is going to be the story, they will hang on to it, but so that then it becomes an anti-reform agenda. Because I've said, strictly speaking, the people who are talking about not having a referendum, why are they saying you cannot have a referendum yet you have no agenda? The people who are saying that Raila is stopping their dreams of them becoming whatever, what are they talking about? It's because it's easy to brand the subject. If you brand the subject Raila Amolo Odinga to stop our son from becoming president, then that is going to rally the supporters. Say, what are you talking about? Even if it was to change a comma where the comma is supposed to be, and you say this comma is by Raila, and Raila is going to stop us from ascending to presidency, that comma will be lost in the process. But look at the people who are opposing the constitution. Although they said that 20% of that constitution was bad and they opposed it, the fact is that the largest beneficiaries of this constitution are the people who opposed it the most, including my community, the Kambas, who were misled to think that the Article 26 about life begins at conception will bring about abortion and many other things. So, can we have an honest discussion? And if you remove the players and their interest, and Mheshimiwa Kipruto Arap Kirwa has brought out a very interesting issue. And personally, I would like, because I had Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga mention it, that he will not contest in the 2022. We know that Uhuru is not going to contest in the 2022. There are those who think that the post of executive prime minister is being reserved either for Uhuru or is being reserved for Raila Amolo Odinga. If it came to pass that the Right Honorable People's President Raila Amolo Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta have no interest in the outcome of the 2022 election, and were doing this for the sake of the nation, those two gentlemen would go down in the history of this country as people who were statesmen. And they would exercise the ghost created by their lineage.
Raila Odinga has already said is not...
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, but...
his supporters saying, including my leader, that he's going to contest.
Yes.
The point he has made, and it's a true point, that in most of the reforms, the clamor for reforms, for example, the people who fought in Naivasha, and he was in parliament then. The reason why you have a weak Senate as opposed to a very strong National Assembly is because the people who were sitting in Naivasha were thinking. It was like a ping pong. They put things on the table and said, which seat am I going to go for? Am I going to become a senator or a member of National Assembly? Since they didn't dream, like he was saying, that Murkomen and Duale are dreaming about the Senate, and they didn't understand the Senate, they chose to make the Senate weaker. But it's becoming to bite them. One of them was Ekwe Thuro, who ended up being the Speaker of the Senate. So if we have no interest and we truly want to have inclusivity, if we truly want to have an election that doesn't create this sort of thing, expensive elections. I've said on this platform that Kenya has the most expensive election in the world. a situation that should not arise. Can we have an election where the economy is not affected, people move on the following day, the winners do their job, and we don't have elections in another round of elections on the day after a leader is sworn in? That's sort of a country.
Well, that's the ideal.
Yeah, but
beg your pardon. That's the ideal situation.
You're about to say something cynical. That's why you're choking.
We've come to the end of our news review, but I need to give you an opportunity to make your final remarks, including looking at what is happening in the country. What kind of headlines should we be looking at? Because yes, the referendum issue is an important one as well, as well as the flooding issues. But going forward, what kind of headlines should be seeing on the dailies?
Well, I think the most important thing is the president set the pace by talking about the four-item agenda. And I would have expected, when he's addressing the issue of food security, to go to the foundations of food security, including the issue of storage, the issue of rewarding the farmers. Right now, farmers are still owed 3 billion shillings by the national government, and we are beyond the planting season in both Uasin Gishu, Trans Nzoia, and the North Rift. And we expect these farmers will produce a pampa harvest that is going to sustain national food security. You see, national food security is synonymous with national security. When people are not fed, there is a problem. Third, in terms of food security, the president should be advised that the cross-border business that takes place has been taking place all the time. And the maize that we have in National Cereals and Produce Board is not from Uganda, is not from Tanzania. That is only the imagination of the deputy president and some of his colleagues. Where was the government if this maize came, 3 million bags of maize? We supplied maize. Even up to now, they owe me money in Mosbridge. And they have not paid us 3 billion shillings. We still got maize because we are frustrated. So what I just want the president, if he's serious about food security, he should look for a team that understands food security.
Okay. Senator.
Two issues. One, between today and up to Friday, I pray that the president issues a statement from State House. If Manoa Isipisu is watching, please start preparing a speech about a national disaster. Let's call the military, NYS, and everybody concerned. Let's stop whatever we are doing. Let's take care of Kenyans. Let's stem all the deaths that are happening because of this, what we call in law acts of God. Number two, and last, to say to the deputy president that I think if I was to advise him, I would tell him not to allow his supporters and people who are supporting his bid to become president to drag him into every small fight in the country about anything and anything. He should not stand in the way of good reforms in the country because of his ambitions. If the destiny of his destiny and fate is that he's going to be president, he will be president. But for purposes of the future and for purposes of posterity, his people should not stand on his supporters should not stand in the way of reform. Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta, the president, and Raila Amolo Odinga, please be clear to Kenyans about the reforms that we want. It cannot be about who will occupy the seat of State House. This country is bigger than all of us, all of you included, me included. It doesn't matter. The fact is that we need a Kenya for the future, and the future for our future generations cannot be created if we become selfless. Can we be selfless for a change? Thank you.